Hi, welcome. In this video, we're going to go over Program 4. So let's get started by taking a look at the instructions. So Program 4 is an incomplete program. It's a smaller program, and the combination of some of the elements from Program 3 and Program 4 are going to be put together with a few more elements for our larger Program 5. So if you've already been working and finished Program 3, then you will notice some features that are similar. The focus of this is to run a menu that allows the user to choose what they want, either S to see the available snacks, O to make an order, B to view the account balance, A to add money to the account, or Q to quit. So we're going to run this in a loop, and then we're going to display a message based on what the user enters. So in our Program 5, we will actually process what the user enters. But for this program, since this is a smaller program, we will just display a message. So let's take a look at the sample output to understand what I'm talking about. So in the sample output, we're going to greet the user as we usually do, and then ask the user what they would like to do. And then we're going to display the options. Now, when you guys are working on your programs, if you want to make it a little easier to interact with the user, I certainly welcome you to make your user experience even better. You don't have to copy my user experience exactly. You can change a little bit the wording, but you must have the same options. S to view the snacks and beverages that are available, O to make an order, B to view the account balance, A to add money, Q to quit. You can't change those options, those letters, because if you change them, it just makes it more difficult for the user, for the grader to grade. So then the user will, so I tested out all of them, so you should test them all also. So when I hit S, you're going to print the message, display the menu, and you're going to actually display a menu, because that's just a bunch of printfs. That's a very easy thing. Then we're going to continue. The user enters X. What do? You tell the user that's not a valid option. Then we continue. They did not enter Q, so we continue. You continue as long as you're going to keep going. The loop is not going to stop unless the user enters the letter Q. Now, if you notice here, also, I'm entering a lowercase a, and I have displayed an uppercase A. You're going to have to process upper and lowercase letters, and you can choose how you want to do that. In the sample code, the skeleton that I provided, I'm choosing to use lowercase letters. So when the user enters A, you're just going to display a message that says add money to the account, and then continue. If the user enters B, you're going to display a message that says this is where you will display the account balance. If the user enters O, you display a message that says this is where you will complete an order if there is enough money. If the user enters Q, you're going to say goodbye and quit. Like I said, this is not a complete good interactive program, because it's not a fully functioning interactive program. We're just getting started on the menu, and we're going to combine some of the features from Program 3 and Program 4 when we do Program 5, and there will be additional features for Program 5. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to go here, and I've given you a skeleton code to help you get started. I'm going to download it, and I want to point out that if I download the skeleton code, so this is very important, if I download the code and I double click on it, it will launch Visual Studio. Now, if by default you have it launching Visual Studio, you can change it and say by default that you want .c files to launch Notepad or Notepad++ or whatever, but right now it's set that it's going to launch Visual Studio. Well, if you notice, I can't build anything. There's nothing to build. Why is there nothing to build? Because I haven't completed a proper empty project in order to do that. So that's not the proper way to create an empty project. You do not create an empty project by launching Visual Studio with your code. You need to start out from the beginning and create an empty project, and then copy and paste your code into it. So I'm going to create a new project. It's going to be an empty project. I'm going to call this Program for video, because this is the video I'm doing. I'm going to put it on my desktop where I put everything else. Select the folder and hit create. And it seems like it's such a big deal to have to do this, but literally it takes just a couple seconds. I've created a valid project, and then I just go project, add new item, name my source code, my last name, Sorgente, program 4, whatever it says to name it, .c. This is not a C++ course, this is a C course. And then I add it. So now I've created a project. I can see over here in my Solution Explorer that I have my source code file. And then all I have to do is go into my downloads, open up program 4 that I downloaded with Notepad, and copy and paste it into my valid project that I created. So it's a little bit of a step, but it's not that big a deal. So hopefully you guys have figured that out by now if you are using Visual Studio that you need to do that. So we've already gone through what the functions are, but let's just look at what I've given you. So here is your source code. I've given you the preprocessor directive for Visual Studio, the printf and scanf, stdio.h, and I'm going to choose to get the user to input, and whatever letter they input, I'm going to change it to lowercase and use a lowercase letter. We have the greeting function. We have the option list function. This has a character return type. So we're going to display all of the options, S, O, B, A, and Q, and get the option from the user and then return it. This function is going to process that option. So once we return that option back to the main function, we're going to declare the character in the main function. Then the option list is going to display the option list and have its own character. It's going to return that character. Then we're going to pass that character off to the process function. The process function is going to have a series of conditions. You can use if, else, or switch, whatever you prefer, to display a message based on what the choice is. The process option function is going to make its own copy of the variable called choice. Now, I want to point out that the purpose of this assignment is to practice conditions, practice a loop, and practice functions. Functions are very, very important. So I do a lot of assignments with a lot of functions because I want you to practice using functions, passing data to functions, processing in your function, and returning. Then we have, these are our function prototypes. Those are placed above our main function. Then we have our main function where we're going to have our variable called choice. I called this variable choice in main just to remind you that this is a variable. The variable is in main is a character, and this is the local variable in the main function. The main function is this block of code here from the opening of the main, the header, to the return 0. That block of code is the main function. So that's where we know this variable called choice in main, and that variable belongs to the main function. Then we have our function definitions down here. So I've already got started to show you how to process the options. And our greeting function is just going to be a series of printfs that welcome the user. This function that displays the options gets the option and returns it. And this function, that's a series of printfs that just displays the beverage options, but we're not processing in this program. So I'm going to go ahead and build the skeleton that I provided for you. And I will notice that I have an error. So let's go down here and find out in my feedback window what my problem is. I have one error and 2 warnings. So right away, I can't continue because I have an error. I can't build my program and test things if I have an error. So I need to figure out what to do about this error. So when I click on it, I double click here, it brings me up to the place where the error is. So the reason I have an error is because I'm declaring this variable called choice in main, and then I'm testing it. But I have to implement the functions and all the functionality in order to get a value for that variable. So how can I test if the variable is the letter Q or is not the letter Q actually? Because this test is saying If it's not the letter Q, I'm going to keep going. And that's what we want to do. We're going to keep going until, as long as the user enters anything. And once the user enters the letter Q, that's when we're going to quit. So as long as the choice in main is not the letter Q, we're going to keep going. So that expression, this is an expression, while choice in main does not equal Q, and that's valid, but you can't test a variable called choice in main if it has no value. So right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign it the letter Q and see what happens. So let's assign it the letter Q and see what happens. So now my variable choice in main has a value. It has the letter Q. And so our test says, while choice in main does not equal Q, we're going to go inside the loop. So in order to test, I'm going to printf that I am inside the loop. Now this is not required, but the whole purpose of this class is for you guys to learn. So as much as you want to jump through and get things done, I want to see what's going on. So let's now rebuild it and see what happens. All right, so now I don't have that issue anymore. My build succeeded. However, I do have one more warning. So now I have one more warning. The reason I have this warning is because this function has a character return type. But if you look in here, this function is not returning a character. Now it's very bad programming to have a character return type and not return a character in your function definition. But I haven't built this function yet, so I'm going to go ahead and ignore that warning for now. But later on, when I go to, in the full implementation of my program, I should not have any warnings or any errors. All right, so now let's see what happens. I'm up here, and I've declared my variable called choice. I put choice in main just to remind me that it's the character in the main function. And I initialized it to the value Q. My loop says, while choice in main does not equal Q, it will print inside, it'll go inside of the loop body. And then I'm just going to say goodbye to the user. Have a great day. So what do you think is going to happen here? Do you think that it's going to print inside the loop, or you think it's not going to print inside the loop? If it's a Q and it says, well, choice in main does not equal Q, let's see if it's going to print it or not. I think it's just going to print, have a great day. Hopefully. Yes, it just printed, have a great day. Now, if I initialize this to any other letter, say I initialize it to the letter X, or even if I initialize it to capital Q and lowercase q are not the same letter. So look what happens. It's going to go inside of the loop. All right, so why is it continuing endlessly to go inside the loop? It's endlessly going in there, inside the loop, inside the loop, inside the loop, inside the loop, inside the loop. Well, the reason that it's doing that is because this variable choice in main has a capital Q. So this is just like saying capital Q does not equal lowercase q. And that's true. So what the program does is it's saying capital Q does not equal lowercase q inside the loop. Capital Q does not equal lowercase q inside the loop. Capital Q does not equal lowercase q inside the loop. So it's just going to continue forever and ever. So we don't really want to deal with that because we have a program to implement here. So I'm going to keep this at lowercase q. And this is just like saying lowercase q does not equal lowercase q. Now that's false. So if that's false, it will not go in the loop. So this should totally stop the loop, and then we can worry about implementing our program. So let's test it. And make sure that we do not have an infinite loop anymore. All right. So now let's move on and start implementing program 4. So I'm going to stop this video now, and in the next video, we will start implementing program 4.